The time has come. Today, we are going to take a look at the top 10 best cassette players, cassette recorders ever made in history. Are you ready? Let's dive in now. Okay, guys. Are you ready? I was scared to do this video because it's a lot of responsibility, as you can imagine, and a lot of people are not going to agree with my choices. Now, before we start, I have made a special list, the top 10, which is composed by, I would say, objective tape players, recorders that have to be there, and a few ones that may be more, an opinion, more arguably considered to be the top 10, okay? And I will say that, I will state that whenever we are in that middle ground field. But in general, I would say that these are incredible cassette recorders. Cost no object, even though clearly now today, the prices are going skyrocket high, as you can imagine. So I decided to put only one deck per brand, per manufacturer, okay? Because otherwise we would have too many Nakamichis or things like that, just congesting the top 10 and making it too similar. So only one, although I will mention a few decks aside of that one, of that specific one. And last explanation, let's say, this is not a top 10 in order, okay? It's not going to be from the worst to the best or the best to the worst. No, they're mixed, even though there are a few that are absolutely considered among the top 3 or top 5. But I'll try to mention that. Okay, are you ready? Buckle up. Let's start now. Okay, so a few of these I have heard, a few of these I own, a few of these I never heard, unfortunately. But according to specs, but according to the crowd, you cannot not put a few of these models, as we will see. Okay, let's start from number 1, which probably can be considered at number 1, truly. What am I talking about? The Tandberg 3014A. Yes, and it's so strange that in a world of incredible Japanese decks, vast majority are Japanese, the number 1 and a bunch of, I would say, decks are at the top of the tops, and they're made in Norway. That is so strange. Yes, but that is a fact. Okay, so I have clearly all my little notes here because we're gonna start seeing some things. Now, I said the Tandberg 3014A, but there's something even better. Clearly the TCD 910 and also 911, which were the professional released decks, not for the broad public. Very low number, only 400 for the 910 and only about 200 for the 911, which was only playback. It had only one head for playback, which were for mastering, to make a mastered cassette tape, because a lot of times you did demos or backups or things like that with these cassettes. They were very important. So those were meant just for on-demand studios practically. So that's why I did not put them. The Tandberg 3014A, which is better than the 3014, has better electronics. It's something that is widely available for the public. So I think it's correct to put that in the first position. Don't forget that we have also these other incredible models. And I also want to do another side note here for the NAD 6300. Yes, baby. Because it has, as we will see in a while, a few of the key features that make incredible recordings on the Tandberg also found on that deck, which is why it's very sought after. Okay, but let's now take a look more in depth to the Tandberg. Okay, so as we said, made in Norway from 1985 to 1996. It's a 3-head deck. They're all 3-head decks. The frequency response, clearly I'm reading the specifications that I have found in the manuals, okay? Goes from 18 hertz all the way up to 23 kilohertz on metal cassettes. Obviously, every time I'm going to say a spec, it's going to be the top of the tops, okay? Not the medium, not the low side, the best they can do, which is this. The signal-to-noise ratio is 74 dB with Dolby C. Otherwise, it's just 54, which is pretty low, actually. The wow and flutter is 0.06%. Not bad. The noise reduction is Dolby B and Dolby C. Okay, main features. We have 4 motors. You can adjust the bias clearly, the azimuth. There is a phase compensation for optimal playback of any other cassette. That's why it's so darn good. Well, at least one of the reasons why. It has obviously tone generators for in order to do your own calibration. And one of the most important features that is also present in the NAD 6300 is the Dynic system, which optimizes the frequency, response, and energy output, okay, against the saturation issues that may arise from that. So you have perfect recordings thanks to this, but also thanks to the Actilinear, other part of the system, of the Tandberg system, we could say, which is used to optimize the bias and increase the headroom by 20 dB. As we said, 3014A is better, at least on paper. And it's important that, here I'm going to put now a little image, because Lucky, a very famous tape head, correctly pointed out that there's a big problem with the 99%, as he says, claims, of the Tandbergs out there. Unfortunately, there is a misprint in the service manual on the regulation of the Dolby value. Okay, now you can read on screen what is the problem, what is the correct one you should adopt. But unfortunately, you have to keep this in mind, because otherwise Dolby is not going to work properly on the deck. And that's why a lot of times you find people say, oh, it's good, but not that good in the end. Most probably because we have that issue with the Dolby value. Okay. This was an amazing, and it still is an amazing deck. Let's proceed now to our second one. Okay, guys. Our second position, and we could probably even in this case say it's rather objective, is dominated by Nakamichi. And more specifically, I've chosen the 1000 ZXL, possibly the limited edition, the gold one. Ugly, yes, but it has some extra features that make it even better. Not that many out there, but there are a few. Otherwise, even the normal one, the black one, is just a hair below the quality of the limited one. So no question, it's amazing. Clearly, if we're talking about Nakamichi, and a lot of people are going to prefer other models, the top models are clearly the Dragon that we all know, that I have, for example. The ZX9 that I used to have, now I have sold that. Fantastic, especially for recording. But also the CR7 and many, many others. These are probably the most famous of all. Okay, let's dive in the 1000 ZXL Limited. Clearly, it's made in Japan from 1981 to 1982. Not that much. Although the normal version was made from 1979 all the way to 1985, and that's why you have many more. 3 heads, clearly. Frequency response on metal goes from 18 hertz all the way up to 25 kilohertz. Wow. For something made in the 70s, wow. Signal to noise for something made in any place, anytime, but already at the end of the 70s, they had that technology to push all the way up to 25 kilohertz. It's amazing. Signal to noise ratio at 72 dB with Dolby C. Otherwise, 66. While in flutter is 0.04%. Noise reduction is Dolby B and Dolby C. We don't have that much for this phase. Only in the second part, we could say, of the 80s and early 90s, we're going to have different stuff. Okay, so, and something that everyone says and claims is that the specs are conservative, okay? They put lower specs. The true specs are even better. That's what a true house, quality house manufacturer does. Okay, so, as we said, the normal version is slightly worse. The limited one is plated in pure gold. That's true gold. It's incredible. The key parts have a special anti-corrosion treatment, so you can be secure that nothing is going to go wrong. It's going to rust. Some parts, other parts are also gold-plated. The flywheels, for example, are machined from brass bars and worked to perfection. And it has already at that time a built-in ABLE, which is practically the calibration system, automatic calibration system that sets the azimuth, the bias, the levels, and the equalization. Wawa Gazawa. Okay, let's proceed now to our third deck. Our third deck is ugly. I think at least is ugly. It's the Revox B215. There are also other models that came before, the B710, also the Studers, the A710, and the A721, but this, in the end, has the best features after all. Strangely, not a Studer, a Revox, yes. It was made in Switzerland from 1985 to 1994. 3-head, clearly. Frequency response isn't amazing, okay? Much more grounded. 30 hertz, all the way up to 20 kilohertz. But also already obtained in Type 2 and also in Type 4, clearly. The signal-to-noise ratio is 72 dB under Dolby C. The wow and flutter also isn't that great, is 0.1%. Noise reduction is Dolby B and Dolby C. So as we said, not amazing specs. But I own one. I have a B215. Unfortunately, never presented on the channel. Hopefully one day I'll do that. And I must admit that not only it's very easy to record, but it's very pleasing to operate it, because the whole thing is so massive and heavy and dampened and just sounds great, and it works great. It's just a pleasure to operate, as I said. Okay, very robust. Here we have, again, 4 motors. 2 DC motors, microcomputer controlled. 2 individually controlled direct drive for the 2 capstans. There's a tone generator for the bias and equalization. And channels are measured separately. There are 6 different measurements that are done. And you can memorize that calibration for that brand of cassette in one of 6 spaces, we could say. So you can memorize 6 different types of cassettes that you may use for different recordings and things. It may seem something not useful, but it's very useful when you are consistent in your recordings. When you have just one or usually 2 brands, or maybe you have specific brands for specific applications, that comes in very easy. You just have to click it and you're ready to go. You don't have to do all the calibration again. So very, very cool. One mention of the chassis of the mechanism, which is just huge. One of the biggest and more solid I have ever seen. Absolutely. It's a die-cast chassis for this extra stabilization. As I said, very ugly, even the meters. A lot of people substitute the meters because it's just an LCD type of little screen. No lights, no LED lights. A pain in the arse. Okay, but the quality is there. Absolutely. Okay, let's proceed. Okay, our 4th position is occupied by a deck that I deeply love. Based on my direct experience, I own it. I love it. I made a dedicated video. A lot of people are going to say, no, what is he talking about? They can't be in the top 10. Maybe you're right, but from my experience, it's just amazing, incredible sounding. What am I talking about? The Dual C844. I mean, the sound that comes from it is absolutely up to the level of the Dragon. I already said that in that video. Here is a link to that video for a little more details. If you're interested, all the links that I mentioned are here below in the video description if you want to catch up after. Okay, so let's try to see a little bit better. What is this? This is a European deck. Not that many. Not that many. And remember that you want a European deck if you are interested in adopting European formulations, like True Chrome are made by BASF, not in Japan. Japan is cobalt doped type 2s, okay? They're excellent, but it's just a different formulation. So if you want to experiment European formulations, it's better to have that type of clearly European types of decks, like this one. This was made in Germany. Deutsche Technology, 1982 from 1984. It has 3 heads, and the frequency response is 20 hertz, 20 kilohertz. But there is a twist in this special deck, because this is one of the few decks in the world that has a double speed. And I have to mention this already now, because when you use a double speed, the frequency response goes up from 20 hertz all the way to 24 kilohertz. The signal-to-noise ratio is 76 dB with Dolby C, or 78 with double speed. Just a little more, not incredibly more. Wow and flutter is 0.035%. When it's a double speed, 0.02%. Noise reduction, B and C. So it has 2 motors, solenoid for 2-speed type dual capstan. It also has a dual capstan. And what does it mean, double speed? Simply, from the normal standard speed of all cassettes of 1/7/8 inch per second, this goes to practically the basic of reel-to-reel tape, which is 3 3/4 inch per second. Wow. And things really start to change when you're starting to use type 2 or even better metal cassettes with a double speed. It's just incredible, the results that you can obtain. And something I find very interesting, but I explain everything in that video, so just jump there. It has a full equalization for all the types of tape, including type 3. Yes, very rare. And also the type 2, European type 2 and Japanese type 2. So very interesting. As I said, just take a look at that video to gain a little more knowledge on this. It's one that I truly adore, and it's just incredible, and it's beautiful. It's just beautiful. Okay, let's proceed. Deck number 5. Are you ready? One of the most incredible and richly featured cassette deck, the AIWA XK S9000. Oh, baby. Now, some people say, since there are maybe some flaws in the design, I remember in forums that the XK009 Excelia is just as good. But, I mean, just looking at the features and specs, this one wins. I don't know this one, okay? I don't know this one, but it has to be in this list, no question. This was made in Japan in 1991. 3 heads, frequency response, 13 hertz. All the way up to 24 kilohertz with metal. Signal to noise ratio, 87 dB with Dolby S. It has Dolby S, all clearly with metal tape, otherwise it's only 65 dB. Wow and flutter is 0.018%. As I said, noise reduction, B, C, and S. Okay, Dolby, B, C, and S. It has the Super AMTS, Anti-Modulation Tape Stabilizer, for extra and precise stabilization. Extreme solutions are adopted to dampen and absorb vibrations. The structure, the heads, the capstans, and it goes on and on. I'm just going to mention a few of the features of this deck. It also has the BTOR, the black tape optimized recording, which means that when you record, it does not activate the erasing head. And that is a very good feature. That is absolutely a good feature because sometimes that can affect the recording signal, okay? If you keep that off, silent, it's just better. Clearly, you have to have a perfect cassette and nothing can be on it before recording. Otherwise, you just turn it on, no problem. I mean, turn it off. It has, very strange, a built-in 8-bit linear dual DAC converter for 8-time oversampling from a CD. That was meant for a CD. If you want to oversample, one of the first I found online, they say it's the only deck that has something like that. I don't know if that is true, but very strange and amazing. Not something I would look after, but I mean, for the time, it must have been futuristic. The heads are made, as most of these incredible decks in the 90s, of 6 ends of purity copper that build up an amorphous head. Okay, the amorphous head is the best of the best, according to many, and I must admit that it's true, not only for its longevity, but also because it does not have crystals, okay? That's why it's amorphous. It doesn't have shape. The copper is just one solid piece, perfectly pure, no micrograins. It's almost like OCC. It's the same concept, we could say, but even better. And those heads are something spectacular that you're never going to see anymore made on Earth. That's for sure. So that's also another incredible thing. Then we have the erasing head is Sendust. Again, we have 4 motors, closed loop dual capstan, one for the capstan, one for the playback and recording, one for the fast forward and rewind, and one for the EMTS. There is a tone generator for manual calibration, and that is good because a lot of people prefer manual calibration, which is very accurate also because the differences are 0.5 dB per click, we could say. And the key wiring inside is OCC copper. Actually, pure copper OCC, okay? The PC OCC type, the best of the best, and also OFC and other less important parts. It also has Dolby HX Pro, which, as you know, it's to optimize the bias during recording. It had a remote control, and it goes on and on. An incredible deck. Let's proceed. Okay, point number 6, deck number 6. Now, this is also controversial, but I had to put it because the specs are amazing and the manufacturer isn't declaring false things. I mean, it's a very reliable manufacturer, and it's the crown, the coronation of a very long dynasty, we could say, of incredible decks. Who am I talking about? Pioneer. Pioneer made incredible decks since the 70s, and the model I put here is the CT95. I know, a lot of people are going to say, what is he talking about? Yes, because the Elite, for example, series is incredible, and also during the 70s, the famous CTF 1250 is also something that a lot of people love and cherish, and absolutely, they're all up there. But I had to pick one, and this has the most amazing specs ever seen on a deck, I must admit. Made in Japan from 1993, 1998. 3 heads. The frequency response goes from 10 hertz all the way up to 30 kilohertz. Speaking about CDs and high res, it ain't doing that, okay? Wawa Gazawa with a metal tape. Signal to noise ratio 86 dB with Dolby S, otherwise it's 64. While in Flutter 0.022%. The noise reduction, as we said, is B, C, and S by Dolby. It also has HX Pro. It has its Super Auto BLE for automatic calibration of the bias, the levels, the equalization. Dual capstan drive. It's a full copper chassis. The whole thing is made out of copper to block any interference. And also it has amorphous heads. I have one. This is going to be a novelty for a lot of people. I had some problems with the door. but it is truly amazing, outstanding. So I really had to put this. But in general, Pioneer has to have a position in this top 10. Okay, let's proceed. Deck number 7. This is also a position that has to be occupied, not number 7, okay, just in the top 10, by a very famous manufacturer, very excellent quality manufacturer, incredible decks. Not only this one, the vast majority of their production is just outstanding. What am I talking about? Technics. And based also, obviously on my experience, the RSB 100, which is simply incredible deck, especially for recording. Just outstanding quality. Incredible stuff, you guys. Wow, wow, wow. A lot of people are probably going to claim that the RS 9900 is better, or even, and I think it's a little more close to this, to the RSB 100, the RSB 965, which is practically there, even though on paper the specs are slightly better for the Technics RSB 100. I haven't tried the other ones, listened to the other ones, so I don't know, but this is a true treasure, and according to a lot of people, is the best of the best by Technics. It was made in Japan from 1984 to 1987. It has 3 heads. The frequency response goes from 15 Hz all the way to 25 kHz with a metal cassette. And the signal-to-noise ratio is a whopping 92 dB. Thanks to what? DBX. Oh, yes, baby. Wow and flutter is 0.045%. Noise reduction, Dolby B, C, and DBX. Fantastic. There's also a pass-through. You can connect your vinyl, your phono preamp to it, because they're vinyl encoded in DBX. Incredible recordings, incredible records. And if you connect it to the input of your Technics RSB 100, you just have to switch it. It will decode, and you will have the most incredible dynamics available on a record. Okay, I also did a video on this deck. Here is a link. Once again, the links are all below. Okay, it's a quartz direct drive closed loop double capstan system. It has the special type of capstan, the Kyoshin, which apparently is very famous. It has 3 tape guides, a phase correction circuit, which is very important when you use different types of cassettes. It also includes amorphous heads, see above. There is a full manual calibration. It creates its own tones and things like that. It has DBX, and it can achieve 110 dB of dynamic range. Yes, yes, incredible. Let's proceed. Okay, another brand, very famous brand, maybe the most famous brand connected to cassettes, is Sony, and more precisely the TEAC KA7ES, which, if you read it quickly, it almost seems like cassette. It's very strange. And this is the pinnacle of Sony's production. This was made in Japan from 1994 and 1996. 3 heads, frequency response from 15 Hz all the way up to 22 kHz with a metal cassette. It can have 80 dB in the signal-to-noise ratio thanks to Dolby S. Oh, yes, it has Dolby S. The wow and flutter is 0.05%. The noise reduction is Dolby B, C, and S. It has amorphous heads with 6/9 of purity copper wiring. It also has lapislazuli bearings, a copper chassis, gold-plated heads, and Sony's special own Dolby ICs, very high quality, and the whole cassette holder is made out of ceramic. And there are also these special R-core twin transformers that just give this special results. It is full dual mono on the board, and it also has this famous, the ensemble of parts is the famous transport, the TCM 200D Mark 17. Fantastic. Incredible stuff, guys. Just incredible. Okay, let's proceed. Otherwise, this video is going to be too long. Our 9th deck is a TEAC. I could not put the top models of TEAC, the Z7000. Although a lot of people claim that the Z6000 is even better because it has the manual calibration, even though it does so many types of calibration and then it decides which is the best. So the Z7000 is probably the top of the tops, and that is why it deserves the first place. It was made in Japan from 1982 to 1986. 3 heads, frequency response, 18 Hz all the way up to 26 kilohertz with a metal cassette. Signal to noise ratio, 92 dB. Wow, thanks to DBX. Wow and flutter, 0.019%. Very good. Noise reduction, Dolby B, C, and DBX. It has a die-cast zinc, alloy chassis with 4 motors, 1 DC servo motor for the capstan drive, 2 coreless direct drive for transport, 1 DC for ancillary control, all microprocessor controlled during the transport phases parts. And there's a full, as we said, full automatic calibration for the bias, the volumes, and the equalization. There are ceramic tape guides, and even as the Technics, it can reach 110 dB of dynamic range. Wawa Gazawa. Huge, massive things full of buttons. Delicate, but one of the best out there, no question. In our last position, our last deck, maybe not that famous, but I think it deserves a little place here, is the Luxman K05, which is practically a modified Alpine AL90. Here, once again, a lot of people prefer the K04 because it's fully manual, the calibration. But apart from that, it's interesting to know that Luxman was also developing an incredible prototype, the X3K, which would have blown everything out of the water. And I mean everything. But unfortunately, it remained a prototype and never hit the market. But apart from that, let's see a little more about this Luxman. Made in Japan from 1984 to 1987, 3 heads, frequency response goes from 15 Hz all the way up to 27 kilohertz with a metal cassette. Wow. Wow and flutter, 0.022%. Noise reduction, Dolby B and C. It has a copper plated chassis. Even in this case, we have a die-cast zinc alloy mechanism, including also the bearings, the capstan in the pinch roller mainly, but the whole thing is just fine-tuned. The measurements, how things are assembled, the distances. It all is perfectly working together to have the best transport ever. The tape tension, the different operations. It's just the perfect, one of the best, absolutely the best transport out there. It has a closed-loop dual capstan direct drive with 3 motors for the capstan, the mechanism, and the reels. The heads are micron aligned with 3 layers of lamination and there are sandust and ferrite. Not the amorphous, but I mean even sandust is absolutely fantastic. It has its own CTS calibration for full automatic calibration for the bias levels and EQ. And it has very high quality Dolby ICs made from Hitachi. The key wiring inside is OFC. Okay, guys, we've reached the end. I also wanted to mention very close, and maybe they deserve to be in this top 10, becoming top 11 and top 12, the Tascam 122 Mark III, and also the Akai GX-F95. These also. And many others. Clearly, I'm sure you're ripping your hair off saying, why did I include that model, this other model? He's an idiot. Okay, please write them down. Explain why you love these other models that I did not include in the top 10, okay? And remember, I had to choose one for brand. It's going to be cool to have, though, your list with other incredible decks. Please try to list things that you truly heard, okay? Not just because you read it on a magazine. Okay, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Now start the hunt, and remember that music is born analog. Bye! Hey Hey there, if you are enjoying my content, please consider to subscribe. It's free, and it will help the channel tremendously. Also, don't forget to explore my prior videos. There's something for everyone. Welcome to the audiophile community.